Thank you. Sorry? I couldn't get to work.
I have a microphone.
Rob's been playing with it all morning, he can't get it to work. So just go for it. My name's Donald Hamilton. You can call me Donald. In fact, please do as often as you can before Trump makes the name so toxic. I'm going to talk today about doing corporate work, particularly the way I do it. Before I start, I've got two confessions to make. The first confession is that the corporate work I do isn't just hypnotherapy. It brings in other skills and experiences I've had from other jobs and elsewhere in my life. So out of interest, just by show of hands, how many people here had another job before they became a hypnotherapist? Yeah, so plenty of experience.
And still do.
Yeah, that will be my next question. How many people still do have another job beside their hypnotherapy? Yeah, and I'm the same. One of the reasons I like doing this is that it brings together the two aspects of my life. I spent most of my career as a lawyer. I started in London in a law firm, then I dropped out for the first time and went to water skiing in Greece. I came back and joined a corporation where I stayed for 16 years. I got to be quite senior. I became a commercial director. I became a professional negotiator in the negotiation centre of excellence. And then I dropped out again. Took the kids out of school and travelled around the world for a year. Then when I came back, I ran my own consultancy doing negotiations training, negotiations advice and assistance, negotiating for clients. But with a young family, you suddenly realise having a regular, predictable income was quite a good thing. So briefly back into the corporate world and hated it. As a commercial director at Hewlett Packard, I hated it, and I think the feeling was mutual. Because at the first opportunity, they let me go there. I took voluntary redundancy quite happily. But during my time, particularly as a negotiator, I became fascinated as to how people's minds worked, how the patterns they ran, the thought process they ran to make them behave certain ways. And I looked into NLP when I was doing negotiations to see how can that help me. But I was made this is a chance to change, and so I did train as a hypnotherapist, trained in NLP. Thought this corporate life is behind me now. I'm stopping people smoking, taking away pain. But more and more as I met my former colleagues, I realised there's actually a massive overlap between what I used to do and what I do now. And I had a couple of other ventures going. I was speaking to someone I met through that who was the CEO of a franchisor. And I told him what I was doing. He said, I'd like you to do two things. I'm going to ask you two questions. First of all is, can you get me over my fear of public speaking? He said, I know I'm supposed to be the CEO. I can present to the board, if I have to stand up in front of a franchisees meeting, I go to pieces. So yeah, we can do that. What's the second thing? So you can tell me what I can do to help me develop this in the corporate side. And I said, we can give me access to your executive team for one morning just to trial what I'm thinking about doing as a course. And he said, done. So he put me in front of his executive team, did a lot of trial and error, did some things that I would never do again. Like one of them was ask, what is your problems, what's holding you back? And he would say, nothing wrong with me, mate. You've come to the wrong place. And someone came back and said, I'm not telling you about my daddy issues. So I thought, I'm not going to ask those questions again. But it went well. Lessons I learned, it's good to get your convincers in first. I don't think any corporate executive ever has said, you know what we need, guys? A hypnotherapist. So you've got to get that to get over it. There is an element of what's all this about. But we'll talk a bit about that as we go through it. As well as doing it with this group, I also started to work more and more with executives, and I realised there was a theme as to how we work together, starting with helping them accept that there was an issue, but also that it was effectively an embedded subconscious pattern we couldn't really do anything about. But how do we resolve that? How do we help them develop? How do we help them improve? And how do they do it on a consistent basis so they're not knocked off track the first time an executive shouts at them or something was wrong? And actually, I put that into a book which I wrote last year, in which called The Unconscious Edge. I put that into a framework called the ASDIC framework, ASDIC, Acceptance, Stabilisation, Development, Improvement and Consistency. I forced it in a book, so ASDIC was quite good, which those of you who know, during the Second World War, the Allied navies, their sonar was called ASDIC, and it helped them navigate difficult waters when they felt they were underwater, couldn't find their way, didn't know where the threats were coming from. They used ASDIC, so I thought it was quite a good metaphor. But anyway, so that's what I did. And out of that, I've developed the corporate training, follows that model, and I'll talk a bit about that today. What I'm going to talk about corporate work, what's the prize? I know a number of people who say, oh, I'd love to do corporate work. And it's always interesting as to why they want to do it. And the reality check, it's not that easy. Getting in, once you're in, it's brilliant. It's getting in is the challenge. So who to target, how do you find out who to target, which very rarely is the buyer, the person you first speak to. How do you target them? What to order? It's based much more on how I do it, what I offer, and also how I structure the offerings, how do I structure the courses, building on it. Yeah, I don't claim to be the sole source of all knowledge in this, so very happy for people who've done this sort of work to share experiences, share challenges, and just ask questions. The prize, everybody I assume you, because you're interested in corporate work, just shouting out, why do you want to do it? What attracts you to doing the corporate work?
I've been in corporate for most of my career, and I've witnessed every much what you've just said, and people winding up in it very successful on the outside, but carrying a lot of that, pattern on the inside. So I left corporate, same as yourself, and then I studied NLP therapy. But I feel drawn back to that word,
Yes.
Because it feels very familiar to me, and I feel like I have, I don't know, to your point, nobody else, a hypnotherapist ever come into an exec meeting where I feel like that wouldn't be my ticket in, that maybe my background would be, but then the use of these skills might be something that I'd really like to take into that environment.
Yeah, we'll talk about how you can bring existing skills. I was to say that, I thought, actually I know how boardrooms work, I know the dynamics, I feel comfortable there. I'm sure with everyone having the background they have, there will be some environment in which you feel comfortable. When I target a certain, my pre-offer I target negotiation because of the background. I suspect if you were to prepare a corporate offering, you may target something completely different, just in the way based on what you know. A lot of people, premium fees is one of the things. Corporates have larger budgets. If you're in the door, they're usually quite happy to pay. We'll negotiate a bit, but you're not talking about, is it £90 or £100 for a session? You're talking, is it 2,000 or 3,000? Right. Repeat business. This is brilliant. This is where my second confession comes in. First confession was I don't just do hypnotherapy. Second confession is I haven't sold corporate work at all in the last year because I haven't had to. I've had 2 clients who are on retainers and one who gave me repeat business every 3 months. Retainer, they pay me a flat fee every month for up to a certain number of hours and then an hourly rate above that. We would gather the repeat business and just put new executives through every quarter, so every 3 months I say, Donald, new bunch of executives coming through, can you come in and do your stuff? And I say, sure. That's coming to an end. They just sold that company. One of my retainers ended in February. One of my retainers has just been extended to the end of May, but I'm going to be back out there selling this stuff soon, so listen, I'm teaching myself as well as everything else here. But repeat, you can get it in all sorts. We'll talk about how you can do it. Repeat, you can get, if you present to a group, target the individuals that are in the group, use the network that they have, they will all have networks. If you say, well, next time your executive team comes through, just give them a shout and I'll come and help. The great opportunities for repeat business, credibility and profile. If you've got pictures of yourself on your website standing in front of a room full of people, all engaged, it says 1,000 words. You can see what you've done. One thing I'm actually particularly bad at is getting the pictures out, which is why I dare turn on the camera today, so I didn't have another session with the camera set up and nothing recorded. Scalability, which then you can start to grow it. I'll talk a bit about how I grow from initial contact to corporate, starting with brief hypno session, I go on to a 2-day course, and just the new opportunities. Can you get consultancy work? Can you get retainers? Can you, one of the people I work for, I did a hypno show at the Christmas party, so the opportunities are there, and it's very low cost because you already have the contacts, and the cost of sale are quite low. Biggest challenge is the woo-woo problem. People still think hypnotherapy, I'm not touching that. That is just woo-woo, that's crazy stuff. I don't want my executives having that. I've spoken to one HR department who says, I've no idea what the insurance situation is, I'm not letting you touch it. But I have found if you call it visualisation, they're all fine with it. Very sceptical about outcomes, particularly at the corporate level. They want to know what they're getting from this. I just don't want a bunch of happy, clappy people with a nice time. I want to know what outcomes I'm going to get. Participants themselves, they can be a bit sceptical. Participants haven't come in thinking, great, I'm going into a hypnosis session, think, what's this all about? So we've got to overcome some scepticism. Finding the right buyer, I found to be the biggest problem, because it varies depending on the organisation. Sometimes it's HR, sometimes it's executive development, sometimes it's the training department, sometimes it's the department head. It's really difficult to work out who the buyer is, and it's very rarely the first person that you speak to, which takes you to the gatekeeper wall. There's always someone who feels it's their job to stop you getting to the buyer, and tell you all the reasons why they can't hire you, and you've got to be able to find how to get around this person and speak to the person you need to. Credibility gaps, again, case studies really help. Once you start getting references, it becomes much easier. I've got a couple of guys that I work with who didn't want quotes on their website, but are happy for anyone to phone them, so we can see what I've done for them. And the sales cycles can take ages. The bigger the corporate, the more procurement processes you've got to get through. Then you get a 67-page contract, which really more suited for software. Saying, can you sign this as our standard contract?
Donald, you might be going to say more, but see the skepticism about outcomes. Typically that's what you're going to, what's the KPI, how do I know I've got from there to there, and that she's better than she was and he's better? What do they seek? They usually seek that for most things.
They ask for a lot. They say, what's going to be, what my sales going to be to increase by? And I usually say, I don't know, because that's dependent on so much more than what I do here. But I'll come back to you in a month, and you tell me if the performance has improved or not. If they say, I want more of it, occasionally I will do pricing. I'll say, okay, well, let's balance the pricing. I can't guarantee your business outcome because you can make redundancies, you can be taken over. But I can guarantee how many people will feel, so why don't we do a base fee, but depending on the score that the participants give or the engagement, will be a bonus or perhaps a reduction if people feel they've got nothing out of it. Or if you wouldn't, I've never done this, but I know someone who has, a slightly different context, and say, let's have a balanced scorecard, and there's a basic fee, potential for uplift depending how the participants feel, potential uplift depending how the business results go. So some of it you can definitely control, some of it you should be alright keeping the job, while the rest you can't control at all, but you're taking the chance on it to get the sale over.
So you don't do things like surveys where they have a 360 feedback, this is how Donald is today, and then 6 months time, here's...
Sorry, yeah, we'll talk about it. Things like employee engagement score and net promoter scores, I say I would expect them to go up.
Okay.
I don't guarantee it, then you've got to get into how do you calculate the net promoter scores, what's going to influence that. If it's high at the moment, what could bring it down beyond my control.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a company who's probably got crappy scores anyway because they're the best candidates to work in?
It varies. Yes, some of them are scrappy scores, some of them have just been particularly coming out of the pandemic when people are going back into the office. They're saying, I've got a new executive team, older people have left because they've decided they want to do something new with their life. These people are in leadership roles that they've never been in before. They might be really good functionally, but they don't know how to operate as leaders. And they've never had to sit in the same room as their colleagues at this level because it's always been in video conferences. And as everybody knows, over lockdown, any middle manager who thought my job might be at risk spent all day setting up video conferences so they were busy. Here I've said there's three approaches. Corporation level, which is high contract value. When you're working with a team inside a company, usually an executive team or a team of employees or a sales team. The industry level, which is much more around conferences, so for example, I'm probably sure it's like the toilet and bathroom sales teams from Dublin. I'm sure there's yesterday there was the Wedding Planners Awards. I'm sure they've got a conference in the year. My sister was at the UK Pantomime Conference last week. Every industry group seems to have a conference these days. So we target an industry level. Function level, I don't touch. It could be lawyers, could be finance people, so it's cross-industry, cross-company. I've not really known anyone that's done that very well, so it's usually very technical. If they have a conference, it's usually very technical, got an aspect of the law, an aspect of finance. I'm mainly focused on the corporate level, because I'll come on to why in a second. But I submitted these sites to Hyde last Friday. There's something about it wasn't gelling right to me. It's not really three. There's something not quite as simple. It's not. There's two ways, and they're very different. Each is a very different landscape. One is the corporate level, which is usually training and development, and the other is speaking at conferences, and they are very, very different beasts. Training, development, the corporate world, the organisers usually the corporation itself. What does the organiser want for itself? It's growth, more sales, more profit, better employee engagement and net promoter score. That's what they want for it. That's their buyer values, if you like. What are the aims for the participants? It's change, it's improvement. They don't care if they're a happy, clappy time. They want to perform better and deliver better results. They want to be more motivated. How can we get people so they can be one thinking, yes, I want to do this, rather than thinking, oh God, here we go again. And behaviour change. You speak up more in meetings, be more confident, get over this anxiety, get rid of your imposter syndrome. We were talking earlier, I both met CEOs of companies when they're quiet and said, every morning I go to work thinking, today's the day I'm going to get found out. They deny it and they put on a brave front, but nearly all of them have something underlying where they think, I don't deserve to be here. Group sizes, and this is usually 10 to 40. If you plan to do almost like a mini hypno show, a real hypno demonstration, the very minimum is 10. The ideal, I say the sweet spot is about 30, because if you think that if you're doing a hypno demonstration, you want really suggestible subjects. And an average is about 10% of people, 5 to 10% of people in any group are going to be suggestible. So if you get 10 people, there might be nobody, so you've got to think on your feet as to how you deal with it. If you've got 30 people and you want to do a demonstration, mini show if you like, there's likely to be subjects there. So too small, nice, you might be lucky and get a good group, you might find people just sitting there thinking, I'm not interested in this, and you've really got to think on your feet at that point. Onto the conferences, who organise them. There's usually a conference organiser. If it's an industry group, they're almost certainly have engaged a conference organiser. Occasionally it'll be an industry body, or it might be the company themselves, but usually have somebody do it for them. So they have completely different interests. Their interests for themselves are to make a profit, and they want people to come back next year so they can make a profit next year as well. In corporations, they have a conference, it's very rare about learning and change. It's more about enhancing the culture, developing a common culture, celebrating success. What's the organiser want the participants to do? If they learn, it's great, but they want them to have a great experience. I spoke to one conference organiser who said, I don't care what we tell people, I don't mind if they don't learn anything, but I want them to walk away thinking that was great. So much how they feel learning what they learn. And group size can be in the hundreds. So if you want to do a mini hypno show, you usually get enough subjects there. The participants' aims require you hear question, to which the answer is usually, my boss told me to come. In the training development, it's people looking for promotion, they're looking for pay rise, looking for how they can enhance their skills, and then how they overcome it. To the extent they recognise them, how do I deal with stress, how do I deal with anxiety, how can I overcome this problem I have of turning to jelly every time I have to speak to a stakeholder, and how do I overcome the limiting beliefs and achieve my full potential. Your competitors for the corporate work are trainers. As I said, no CEOs that have said we've got a hypnotherapist in here. They'll say we need training for the executive team. So your competition is other training organisations and training individuals. And these guys are good, and they've got really good sales processes. A number of times when I've said I'd like to pitch for it, they say we've already got 2 trainers who are really good. And you say, oh, can you see their pitch just to see what you're offering, to see if I can help with it. And most people will actually share it with you, so you get a bit of insight into what the competition are doing. And that helps you change your own marketing if you need to, enhance your messages. If you've got the weak spots, then that makes you put a strength in your presentation for that. Pull through opportunities, as we said, great for creating value. One-to-ones, when I'm pricing these, I quite often say, but what I can add in, if you want to top up, we can add in one-to-one sessions with the participants afterwards, either for an extra cost, or if you subsidise it, I'll give them a discount. And people generally say, yeah, we'll do that. I found, if you do a group, I would say 20, 30 people, whatever, about 30% will ask for a follow-up one-to-one session. Things they've not wanted to talk about in the group, things they've not wanted to admit in front of their boss, but if there's a problem with a colleague, I find I'm having to mentor someone, I don't know how to mentor them. Very common one, I don't know how to deal with stakeholders. They said, yeah, no, we talk about negotiations, but the hardest ones are with my stakeholders. So one-to-ones, I know, say an average of about 30% come through. So if you build in pricing for 50%, you can make a good margin on it. Or there's one for a while I said, I'll come in every Wednesday afternoon and just have an open door. That wanted to get taken up so well, so now I'll just continue that. Retainers, so I've had the 2 retainers, which came out of hypnotherapy work, or doing hypnosis-based sessions. They evolved into much further ones. One of the companies is now negotiating a merger, and I help them mentally prepare for the negotiations. I help them analyse what the other side are doing, look at language patterns, and I used to look at negotiations, training to see here's how you can prepare for this better. If you approach it this way, you're going to end up butting heads and getting nowhere. If you approach it this way, you can find common ground. Referrals, people love to give you a referral. If you do a good job, the CEO with people, they'll say, oh yeah, you speak to Don, he's good. Again, free work. And product sales, less in the corporate world, but if you can tell people around, I've got some products online here, very different in the conference world. Pricing model is variable, and we'll talk about, we look at how we structure the session, there's different ways you can do it. But the more special is if, for example, you do executive performance in financial services, small cap markets, you're so niche, you become very valuable. For the conferences, why do participants go to the conferences? Have a good time. Exposed to new things, maybe learn something, but really meet with friends, meet with old colleagues, and hopefully do something during the sessions that enjoyably fills the time between drinking. Competition is speakers, professional speakers and speaker bureaus. Again, these guys are good. They're very competent. They've got the track record. And you can go onto a number of websites, I can't remember any off the top of my head, where it's just speaker bureaus and you can see every speaker, you can put in a topic, see who people are. And again, it's also a great source of information. If you're up against speakers, go to the bureaus, find what the speaker is, get their LinkedIn profile, get their Facebook, go onto their website so you know all about them. So again, you can see what do they do well, where are their weak spots, so you can start to build an offering that targets the competition, and it helps you enhance how you can present yourself. Pull through opportunities, product sales. You see there's tables at the front. Everyone who's speaking here today is the chance to sell their books, to sell their courses. We used to say back of the room sales, where everyone had a pile of CDs, DVDs, and books. Back of the room sales, online, occasionally one-to-ones, a lot less so with conferences. You might get some introductions, referrals, very rarely you get repeat business because they'll say, well, we had him last year, he's not coming next year. A corporation, if he did a great job, they'll say, get him back next year, and the execs loved him. With a conference, they'll say, no, we need someone different next week, we've had him ready. So I've done some conferences, but I really focus on the corporate. Well, it's also the relationship you have with the team, or the people you work with. In a conference, it's a mechanical relationship, you're just the presenter. The way I work with the groups is, you want to be part of it, you want to integrate with the team, you want to be part of it, you want to feel their success, you want to feel their pain, you really want to drive them through to help them make the change. Conferences, you do your speech, you go home. So I really enjoy the personal side of, like I was speaking earlier about in person or online. I've done a group session online because I just love doing them in person because you get such better feedback real time through body language, just through engagement, through meeting them in the breaks, etc. Pricing model is premium. You look at the prices, these speakers charge you £10,000, £12,000. And one of the people I talk about, we've heard a guy called Anthony Gailey, who sadly died last year, but he was regarded as the top corporate hypnotist. And he did a lot of conferences, and he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant at it. He was a mentor of mine, and I like to say a friend of mine. He get great premium fees just for doing industry conferences. He said, I'll fly up to Canada to do the bathroom sales team of Canada's conference because they're paying me well.
And sorry, how do you approach them at the beginning? How do you approach them, and how do you ask for the pay?
Right.
How do you?
Can we come on to that in a minute?
Yeah.
It's coming up.
Okay.
Who do you buy? See, I find this the biggest challenge. Corporations, the budget holder is rarely who you first speak to. I don't know if any of you know Dylan Lovegrove. He started to do some corporate work, and I was speaking to him the other day, saying, do you not find that a challenge, Dylan? He said, yes. He said, I find you've just got to start with HR and recognise, and we need to say a common view of HR teams. Apologies to anyone who's in there. They will do whatever they can to stop you achieving the goals you want. But you usually start with HR. If you have a contact that can get you a referral into the executive level, that's much better because they can see value. HR tend to just see the problem. Executive development can see the value, but the team leads, people whose teams are going to be effective, really see the value. That's where you've got to try and get to. Industry conferences, again, Anthony Gailey was really good at this. He said you don't go straight to you go to the conference venues. So you go to the conference venues. What conferences have you got coming up in the next month? Because I'm interested in just see what the conferences are. Venues say, here we've got East Canada, the bathroom suppliers of Canada. So you make a note of all the people that are there, then you contact them and say, you've got a conference coming up. I'm a speaker, a keynote speaker. I'm really interested in see what I can do at your conference. And so they're usually looking for something a bit different. And if you say, well, the venue recommended you to me, then that you start to break in that way. So I would say if you want to do conferences, a great starting point is the venue because that gives you a ready-made list of what conferences are coming up. And the good thing about conferences is we repeat every year generally. So even if you say, I know you've got a conference next month, I know it's too late for that, but next year I'd be really interested, so you start to build the back end of a pipeline, as well as from 3 months out, if they haven't got speakers, they're really looking for something different. Otherwise you're building credibility more than a year before the conference is held. Functional conferences with professional bodies or trade bodies. All buyers respond to thought. No buyer responds to your therapy credentials. It's what value you bring. Either are people going to be entertained, are they going to be changed? What's your thought leadership? What's the value you're bringing? What business problem will you solve for them? How do you find the right buyers? To your question. LinkedIn, I think you've got to have a presence on LinkedIn. They nearly all hang out on LinkedIn. But it's bloody difficult to sell stuff on LinkedIn. There are a lot of lurkers. People will sit there and read the posts, engage with them, but they're really very, very sceptical. The slightest whiff that you're trying to sell something and they're off. And I'm probably the same. As soon as someone contacts me on LinkedIn, I think, what's he trying to sell me? got to have a presence, so regular posts, regular newsletters, and building contacts. So I produce a regular newsletter, regular posts. I've got a team that work on some of it for me and do the posts. Although I always make sure it's a person who don't. You can use AI to do the posts and also to post them, but they very soon get spotted. I won't say I don't use AI, but I always go in the human first, human last AI approach. I get the right prompt, might need some help as to what I can post about, but then put it in my voice. Another thing that's really useful is quizzes. People can't resist a quiz. And you've seen it on LinkedIn, possibly on Facebook. What type of X are you? Answer these questions and you get your personalised score. Corporates love it as well. And I'm working on one at the moment called the executive team, your executive team audit. When people ask questions about the executive team, the back end will produce a score and say, here's the recommended areas for improvements, here's what you do well. And then, so you can identify who has got a need, what the main problems are, and use that as a tool for your marketing. Of course, as the ones on Facebook, it's usually, here's your score, here's where you're weak, and here's how my products can help you. Direct messaging can be useful, not necessarily, so it's good for building relationships. But I use direct messaging more. I do a number of LinkedIn Live workshops, again based around the mindsets that I call this the corporate edge. I did a series of workshops on LinkedIn Live called the unconscious edge, or the unconscious aspects of success. So, but you've got to have a hook, which is not hypnotherapy for corporates, because then no one turns up. But if you say the unconscious edge, ways to change your executive team to get success. So you've got the hook, you've got to start to identify the problems they want, and find out what problems you're trying to solve for them. You can use AI for that. There's a website called, I think it's Answer the Public, where you can put in almost any question and it tells you what people are searching across all search engines, so you can work out what are the top worries, what are the top business challenges that people have today. Conferences and conference venues, we spoke about. Anthony Gailey was brilliant at it. Special offers work to an extent. I mentioned Dylan Lovegrove earlier. Dylan does special offers all the time. So I'm just getting into corporate direct messages and email outreach. I'm just getting back into corporate work. I'm looking for 2 or 3 reference clients. I'm offering a 50% discount to the first 5 that respond. And he says he's getting great results doing that. I haven't tried it, but it's on the list. But again, be clear, be confident what you're offering, be confident in your pricing. And don't use the word hypnotherapy or hypnosis. Your existing network, for me, that has been the biggest area. If you think of all the people you know, executives, friends, everybody has a network. Everybody knows someone that knows someone that can buy something. So just talk to them, just tell them what you're doing. Tell them what the outcomes you can deliver, tell them how you can help people. They know the problems you can help. They will have somebody say, well, I've got a problem with work. Say, well, I can help, I'm happy to have a chat, you don't have to commit to it. Facebook is coming up in the corporate world. Everything's on Facebook is here's what I had for my dinner plus a 4-page rant about Donald Trump. But there are a lot of corporate buyers hang out on Facebook. I know there's one organisation. It wasn't independent ages, it's just been acquired by someone called the Entrepreneur Circle, who does nothing but corporate work on Facebook. And their model seems to be really good, so having a look at seeing if they can do anything in that.
In that regard, all of that Facebook presence, I presume, would be your business related one, not your personal Facebook.
I use a business page. I know some people do a personal one. Right. How many people here have a separate business page if you're a presence at all? Yeah, because I've always done that. Some people say it's no difference to me. I just do it all in the one page. Yeah, and joint venture arrangements where the 2 types. One where you work with a client to do a joint presentation. This is quite good for like law firms and accountants firms to take lots of clients, and they think they look a bit different. Every law firm I've ever come across says, we're different, we're commercial, and they're all exactly the same. So if they can produce something for the clients, we're running a seminar on X, and we're going to have this guy here who can help improve the performance of your team. It's a kicker for them because it's something different, and you're sitting in front of a whole new lot of people. There's no point saying to them, I'll give you 20% of my fees, because they'll say, well, that's half an hour's work for one lawyer, why do we bother about that? Right. Woo-woo problem. Otherwise we're starting to get a bit behind in time. Yeah, everyone's, or just about everyone's experience of hypnosis is dancing stage, clucking like chickens, dressing as ballerinas. So you've got to overcome it. Hypnotherapy is, it's a branch of hypnosis, but it's different, very different to that. They have a lot of worries about what it will do to their employees. Are you going to make employees look stupid? Are you going to get them stuck in hypnosis? So you really have to work hard to show it's different from stage hypnosis. It has its roots in the same thing. You're activating the same patterns. It's different. And it has verified. It's got verified neuroscience. It's got roots. You can produce lots of evidence that it works as a therapeutic tool. So I keep saying, don't sell it as hypnotherapy because people will buy it that way. Anything volume.
I was determined at a certain point. I said, now let's stop the shits. This is not woo. I'm determined to use the word hypnosis. I came back from it.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it a bit. What a good way to do it. We usually talk about your running internal. And because I talk about you used to have to do get the convincers in front of everyone's running internal patterns that cause their anxiety, that cause their imposter syndrome, that cause their limiting beliefs. So, but how do you go over it? And I also say, one way you can do it is hypnosis. So you're not ramming hypnosis down your throat, but you're opening the door that it's a possibility. And they can say, don't be frightened about it. As I experience it, most people say, yeah, we'll give that a go. And suddenly you're in. If you say, so now I'm going to do hypnosis on you, no chance. But you build up to it, say one way you can do it is, and suddenly it doesn't seem as threatening.
One question, Donald. Because I am in the corporate world, and I keep telling my team that when they're putting slides together for the executive team, that if it's going to a VP, they need to treat them as a curious 4-year-old.
Yes.
And if it's going to an SVP, then it has to be treated as a curious 2-year-old. It has to be absolutely simple. So I'm just curious, how do you put the pitch together?
I usually talk about. I said, don't go into the. When we put the pitch together, I say, effectively, your team will run embedded patterns. You probably notice people behave in certain ways in certain circumstances. This is not their fault. It's probably not just the way they are. It is a subconscious pattern that they're running. It'll have been installed somehow over their life. We don't know how, we don't need to know. But they don't have to, it's not their fault, but they don't have to live with it. We can help them overcome that. There are a number of ways we can look at. So we can look at hypnosis, always with consent. We can look at doing visualizations, we can look at NLP, and depending on the discussions we've had, I can often say, here's how the patterns can get installed. You can use the same things to uninstall them, whether it's repetition, goal setting, which we'll talk about. But when we've got an hour, I like to do things that are fairly sharp and fast, and we can experiment with hypnosis with consent. We can do a group exercise with NLP, which is nobody going into hypnosis, but we do submodalities, so people have their own problem. Change the submodalities, and we can do a visualization of what we want the next meeting to look like, what we want the next negotiation outcome to be. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right, I've just did the 10-minute warning, so I'll offer 3 tiers, possibly 4 tiers of thing. One is the 1 hour half-day basic session. If you only want to do hypnotherapy or hypnosis, this is your sweet spot. You can do brilliant work, brilliant sessions in this. The 1 hour session is corporates is very quick. Conferences is much what it is a speech, it's a talk, it's a mini hypnosis show, so they're very different. Ideally, I do the first 3 modules of my module 1 is a pattern demonstration exercise. I was hoping to illustrate it here today, but I'm not sure we went to have time. 2, talk about how your mind works, how the patterns that we showed that we run have become embedded, why it's not their fault. And then how you think out of it. And then model 4 is usually hypnosis, NLP, visualization, demonstration. I'll come on to how I structure the courses in the next 6 minutes, and how I approach each of these. Tier 2 is the 1-day program. This is where it moves from just a nice experience and to start to do real change work and development work. Usually 10 to 30 people. And you've got to do a lot more pre-work for this and start with how do you speak their language, speak to the people that run the group that you're talking to, speak to some of the participants if you want, because simple things like how do I address the participants? If you walk into a room full of senior doctors and say, hey junior medics, you've lost the room. And if you walk into a room of senior insurance executives, they call them the high producers, and say, I hear you're all insurance clerks, you've lost the room. So even knowing how you address the attendees is really important. Do they have a corporate language? Are there terms that you should use? Because the more you can sound like them, the more they'll buy into what you're saying. Do they have common goals? Does everyone strive for, I know in the insurance world in the States, they have the $1 million producer, you get a gold ring or something. Are they all striving for the same goals? So you can say, here's how you can aim to be the gold ring producer this year. Again, you talk their language, gets their confidence, they feel you're one of them, and it becomes much easier to get an inclusive session with them. Right. So do all the models from tier 1, usually expand them a bit because we've got some more time. In module 5, it's around goal setting and visualization. So we've overcome your existing goals, we've done the acceptance, we've done the stabilization, we're now into development and improvement. First step of that is goal setting. And research that shows people who are senior executives, they nearly all have their goals either written down or recorded and they listen to them daily. And we use the Wheel of Life and do a goal setting exercise with visualization and repetition of how they can program into their goals. And then talk about building and maintaining relationships. And I'll talk a bit more about that because that's a very useful one. In the 2-day program, this is my premium course, which is those 6 modules in 7, where I talk about collaborative negotiation because it's what I know. And this is where you tailor this to what your background is. So you're talking about something you know and can talk authoritatively on, and you align with the people in the room. And my background was in large IT and consulting, so I speak to professional services firms and sales teams. If your background was as a florist or something, you can speak to the Florist Association and again, things that are relevant to them. So the way I look at it is, if you do the 1-hour session, you're helping people understand their mind. The 2-hour session is changing how they relate, and the 2 days they transform their performance. So how do I structure my courses? 5 minutes. Are there an extra 5 that we can squeeze out of it, or are we in a hard stop?
I think there's like a 15-minute coffee break before people start back at 11.
Right.
So.
Would people, sorry, I'll give you, would you like to see a demonstration of the
Yes,
exercise?
please.
Could I have 4, let me clear this table. There is an element of physicality to this exercise, and I'll need 4 volunteers. Could I volunteer, you can come down the front please, grab a chair.
Either side.
Grab two either side, those chairs will
Donald, can I ask you to really quickly go back to the last slide just
Yeah,
so I can
sure.
take a picture of it? I like that little quote.
Yeah, just sit down opposite him. So you might want to flex your shoulders a bit. Has anyone got any neck, elbow, wrist or shoulder problems? I start, just certainly every corporate course I do, I start with this exercise, and I can teach the whole course off, whether it's 1 hour or whether it's 2 days. So, if you lean forward, look at the person opposite you, and then I want you to adopt the position. There we go. grip hands. At the moment I'm going to say go. When I say go, the only rule is that when the back of the other person's hand touches the table, you get a point. And for every point you get a prize. Your aim is to get as many points as possible. Go!
I do yoga, sorry.
Keep going.
Let's do yes or no?
Go ahead.
You're gonna go.
I'm going to get you a prize, yeah. Okay.
There we go. That's. How did that go?
That's good.
Who got points?
This lady.
How many did you
I
get?
know I've lost tomorrow.
How many points did you get? Oh, they're still asking you. Okay, you can stop there.
You.
So how many points did you get?
One.
Yeah. And what was your tactic for getting points? And the aim was to get as many points as possible.
I felt slightly with this gorgeous woman in front of me. How could I be so forceful with my mental strength?
But see, the aim was to get as many points as possible, and you probably get one or two each.
Yeah.
Put your mind to it and think how you could get more points.
Mine how I.
Put your mind, think about it.
Okay.
Working together, how could we get more points? Yeah, exactly. You get twice as many points, and you go like that. It feels fair because I get one, you get one. It's all fair. Fairness is nice. You communicated, and you start to get fairness and get more points. How many points you get with your hands here? None.
No.
How many points you get with your hands here? None. How many points you get with your hands here? None. Think again. Get more points.
Yeah.
Yes. Not just doing it faster. Let's really put your minds to it.
Yeah.
No, you can do better ways than that. No, you're still spending too much time in the air. That's losing points. How can you do it? How can you do it better? Yes. But now
We are getting points.
Yes.
Yes, it's us rather than the
Yes.
individual.
Because see, we started off, everyone fought and get next to no points. Then they communicated and started getting more points, but it was on a fair basis. Then they started to trust each other, they were doing it together and get a whole load more points. Think how you can get more points. Even more. Even more points. You can get more points than that.
Holding hand on the table.
No. Getting close. Even more points. Even more points. I think even more points.
Legs.
I didn't see you had to hold hands. Yes, that's it. So we went from
And legs.
well, when you have to hands touching. So we went from we're back to here, getting next to no points. Start communicating. We've got more points. It's quite fair. Start to trust each other more. But once trust was there, you can start thinking even more constructively, and that's when you really start to get exponential growth. But now, here's the question that changed everything for me. Why did you arm wrestle in the first place? I didn't say it was arm wrestling. Because you're conditioned that way.
Yeah.
Because I've said to you twice, it's an exercise to show how you run unconscious behaviours and act in autopilot. But it's because, and I use this as the segue into, but we all run internal patterns. It's not just about arm wrestling, it's just about every aspect of our life. So if you sit down and you're doing the mental equivalent of arm wrestling because you think that's all you've ever experienced, think of the potential you're leaving the table, think of what you're leaving behind, and then you can build the course from there. So we're going to say thanks very much. Give me a big hand.
What was your command? Because you said what was that initial command?
The initial command was, there's
misinterpreted.
only one rule. When the back of the other person's hands touch the table, you get 1 point, and points mean prizes. And the aim is to get as many points as
Point of the
possible.
other person's hand.
Yeah. So yeah, so
Right, okay.
but normally I've got a big bag of candies or something there, so you get candies. I started off to you $1, so that's. But so I can build the whole course up with actually how you run it, how patterns are. It's really visual, very. I get the whole confidence to do it. It's not just two people down the front, and it's very visceral for you to think, wow, you fooled me into doing it, but I automatically did it. I'm going to have to race through the rest. Pattern 2 is how your mind works. We're just building that, how our patterns installed in the first place, with repetition, experience. I thought to figure out a time of stress when you're really young. How do you change patterns? Hypnosis is a way. Oh, I don't have time to do that exercise, unfortunately. Hypnosis and NLP visualization demonstration. I love to try and do it as a mini hypnosis show and get people up to that. The 3 things that I always try and do are stuck hands, name and number, forget, and disappearing money. I'm even done. Stuck hands, I think a good subject to get the hands stuck to the head. And say, your hand stuck to the head? Yes. I've got some money here, I'll give you £50, €50, I'll keep your hand off your head. I can't do it. So you say to the people there, is the hand going to stick to the head? And they say, no. So what motivated to get him or her to get it unstuck? There's a sales, they go, money. So you've got another £50, £100 if you get your hand back. No. So is the hand really stuck to the head? And says, no. So what's making the hand stick to the head? It's just the mind. So yes. And now you walked in here today, you all said you felt a bit stuck in your career. That's just your mind. Then we want to name and number forget. And see, we've forgotten the things that are really key to it, the essence of being the name and the ability to count. And I removed that in 5 minutes. Think how quickly we can remove those patterns, other patterns you've been running. If something is fundamental to your name and how you count can be removed in 5 minutes. Think how easy it is to remove those negative patterns, those limiting beliefs, using the same approach. And finally, usually with sales teams, if someone's deep enough, I'll put a big jar of money on the table and you do a negative hallucination so it disappears. And say, can you see the money? There's no money. But the money was sitting there. I don't see any money. I would say to the guy, is there money there? And everyone shouting, yes, there's money there. So there's no money there. And you'd say, so how many times have you left money on the table just because you haven't seen it? And again, people say, wow, my mind is controlling so many things in how I approach this business. Goal setting visualization, building and maintaining relationships. Whether you say it's relationships is a function of behaviour, not of personality. Look at rapport, we use the NLP, rapport building models, mirroring and matching, eye accessing, rep systems, trust, and if you know David Baker's trust equation, you can actually measure, you've got a score of trust. The equation, trust equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-interest. And you can measure how trust is growing over time with people. And communication, do a lot of work, particularly around active listening, communicating how you use words, how you use your body, etc. And finally, I do collaborative negotiation. It's not about banging the table. We leverage all the previous models, particularly communication, rapport, trust, pattern exercises, and 5 elements that exist in every negotiation, based on work that we did at the Harvard Negotiation Project that I used to do some work for. Interests, options, alternatives, commitment, and legitimacy, which I can talk about in breaking the rules. It really changes how you look at it. Takeaway for the week: find one organisation or one person that you know that's contact, pick up the phone, tell them what you're doing, and then actually pick up the phone. Finally, I've got a table outside the living room, outside the main room, if you want to buy a copy of my book. It's 10 euros, 14, 15 on Amazon. And I'm turning what I spoke about today into a full-on training course, hopefully in person. If you want to sign up for the priority waitlist, there's a QR code on the table as well. Just do that. I won't spam you, but I'll keep you updated on how it's progressing and give you a discount in advance pricing once it's up and running. But thank you very much. So I've run over the time a bit. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.